Hi, everybody. This is Joe Firestone, and this is Empowering Democracy. And tonight we have another Dump the Corruption show dealing with the fundraising of a number of Dem office holders in the House of Representatives. Dean Philips from the Minnesota 3rd, Kevin Mullin from the California 15th, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz from the Florida 25th, Kim Schrier from the Washington 8th, and Jennifer Wexton from the Virginia 10th. I want to emphasize that none of these are members of the CPC. So I will probably be joined in a moment or two by peers, but I'm going to proceed anyway with the show. We have 5 people to cover tonight. So I'm going to begin. I see Steve is here. Hi, Steve Wolfbrand. Doc, how about Clarence Thomas corruption? I don't think that's going to drive Clarence Thomas out of office. He's a very, very stubborn man. He's been friends with his benefactor for 20 years, and it's easy to make the case that his benefactor and he are so alike in their thinking that there's no real additional influence that his benefactor has on him. They're just really, really, really close friends, and they have been for ages. So there's really nothing new here. I agree that such contacts should certainly be prohibited and certainly should be governed by ethics rules imposed on the Supreme Court by Congress. I think that should happen. I'm all for that. But I don't think this particular case really increases the probability of that. I think the Democrats are trying to make a lot of political hay out of it. But I don't think the political hay is going to produce a resignation from Clarence Thomas. Robert Copeland says, hi, Steve and Joe, and Kay is here. Hello, Kay. Thank you very much for coming. Anyway, I'm going to move to the first of our candidates for tonight. Dean Philips, I should say office holders, because they are office holders. Dean Philips of Congressional District 3, CD3 in Minnesota. And Dean Philips was the incumbent there, and he won the race. He raised $2,218,400. He spent $2,260,038. He ended with cash on hand of $176,429. His Republican opponent was Tom Weiler, or Whaler, I'm not sure how he pronounces his name. He raised $677,223, spent $670,226, and had cash on hand of $6,997. I think Dean Philips has a pretty Democratic district and that there wasn't much doubt that he was going to win. There was some outside spending in favor of Tom Whaler, supporting him, $13,888, not a big amount. And Dean Philips had $3,132 supporting him. So looking at both the outside spending and the direct campaign spending, there was a huge funding advantage for Dean Philips in this election. Looking at the candidates tab, we have Dean Philips won handily with 60.0% of the vote. He had small individual contributions of $317,473. That was 14.31% of what he raised. That's more small dollar donations than most of the Democrats get than we've been seeing. 14.31% of what is raised, that's pretty good. Dean Philips also did not have any PAC contributions, which is unusual. And there was no candidate self-financing either. But where Dean Philips failed the litmus test is with large individual contributions. He got $1,918,337 in large individual contributions, and that was 86.7% of his contributions. So he fails quite handily on that score. Tom Whaler got 40% of the vote. He did pretty well on small individual contributions as well, based on what we've been seeing. That was 10.8% of what he raised. He also had a lot of PAC contributions, $97,000, $67,000 in candidate self-financing, which is, of course, comes under the heading of a large individual contribution, in my view. And in large individual contributions, he got $392,202, which was 57.91% of what he raised. So he raised money from well-off and rich people. He put in a good bit of his own money, and he had $97,000 in PAC contributions. So he fails the litmus test too. They both fail it in this instance. Dean Philips just raised a lot of money from rich people. I think that's the story of this race from a fundraising point of view. If we look at contributors, we've got Democracy Engine, $58,650 for Dean Philips. Heartland Realty Investors, $36,550. The Polad Companies, $29,650. University of Minnesota, $18,240. There's Cargill. Gave him $14,175. Then there are a lot of smaller contributions all across the board from all kinds of sources. Tom Whaler got some money from University of Minnesota also Primera Technologies gave him $11,600, but most of what he got were relatively small donations compared to what we've been seeing. When I look at industries, top industries, I get Dean Philips is very popular with retired people, 390,315. And also you have to remember, no PAC money here. Securities and investments, 160,130. Lawyers and law firms, 103,771. Real estate, 95,579. And then there are hefty but other smaller contributions that come in. As we've seen, not a lot of small dollar donations here. Mostly money from well-off people coming in various industries. And the same is true for Tom Weiler, who looks like he funds himself the same way that Dean Philips funds himself. Let's see if any sectors. Finance, insurance, and real estate as a sector contributed nearly $300,000 to Dean Philips. Lawyers and lobbyists, another $105,000. And miscellaneous business, $109,000. There's another category here, $514,788, which is not further broken down, which is odd to say the least. You don't see that in most of the reporting. So that's about all I'll say on this. I'm going to double check PACs to see that there really are no PAC contributions. Mm-hmm. There were PAC contributions to Tom Weiler. There was very little. Dean Philips seems to have given his PAC contributions back. He was minus $22.45 to business PACs, minus $5,000 to labor PACs, and minus $1,988 to ideological PACs. So he was giving back PAC money, evidently. In contrast, Tom Weiler had more than $100,000 in PAC money given to him. So anyway, both candidates fail the litmus test. By the way, Dean Philips is Lana Dell's congressperson. I don't know whether Lana's here tonight. She's usually here. And Steve Wolfbrand says that another one bites the dust. Yes, another one did bite the dust. Here's California District 15. That is Kevin Mullin. And evidently, Kevin Mullin raised $1,175,432. He spent $1,152,898. He was running against David Canepa, who I remember from looking at things previously, was a progressive candidate. California, you can have a Democrat on Democrat contest because the top two go to the final election, and the top two were Mullin and Canepa. This was an open seat. Kevin Mullin was not an incumbent here. Anyway, at the end of the campaign, Kevin Mullin had $22,534 cash on hand. I think I said earlier he raised $1,175,432. spent $1,152,888. David Canepa, $766,467, and he spent $766,247. He ended with $220 cash on hand. As I said before, he was the progressive candidate. There was outside spending, $598,000 in favor of Kevin Mullin, $166,000 in favor of Emily Beach, who was evidently another primary candidate. Zero in support of David Canepa, but there was $12,500 spent in opposition to David Canepa in the outside spending category. I'll look at that more closely a little later. I'm going to the candidates tab now. Kevin Mullin got 55.5% of the vote, and David Canepa got 44.5% of the vote. So it was a pretty close race. The funding advantage went to Kevin Mullin, and that's why he won. He did not have much in the way of small dollar donations, $44,546. That was only 3.79% of what he raised. He relied largely on large individual contributions, $847,430. That's 72.1% of what he raised. And PAC contributions of $255,628. That was 21.75% of what he raised. He did self-finance to the tune of $40,000, so that was further large individual contribution in his favor. David Canepa had $56,389 in small individual contributions. That was 7.36%. He got very little in PAC contributions, $28,600. That was 3.73%. In the large individual contributions category, that's contributions of more than $200, so it's well off people who are giving contributions of that size. He raised $702,806, or 91.69% of his financing came from that way. So both failed the litmus test. Kevin Mullin's case, he failed it worse because he got a lot of PAC money as well as getting a large amount of large individual contributions. He also did some self-financing, which, if substantial, disqualifies a candidate as well. So there we have, in a way, another two candidates who bite the dust. Let me look at the outside money here, because that was interesting. I should look at that again. Directly in the outside spending category, Kevin Mullin got $598,002 in support of him. There was $166,183 in support of Emily Beach. One thing that's interesting here is that Alice B. Toklas, LGBTQ Democratic Club, a PAC, gave $3,128 to somebody. I can't say to who. Coalition to Grow San Francisco, 501c organization, gave $12,169 to somebody. Again, I don't know who. It's not obvious from this. The Super PAC, Courage California Super PAC, gave $722 to Kevin Mullin. Also, the Democratic Majority for Israel, the DMFI, notorious for its work against by Nina Turner. Okay, it was a carry committee, and it gave $25,000. I don't know to whom, but I'll bet it was to Kevin Mullin. Okay, the Sierra Club gave $10. They had a super PAC. The United Democracy Project, which is uh, the super PAC version of APAC, that gave $463,373. It's obvious that that was most of the money that was going to Kevin Mullin. So they seem to like Kevin Mullin. Between DMFI and the UDP, they gave quite a lot of financing to Kevin Mullin and helped him to win that 55-45 victory he had over David Canepa, who was, as I say, the more progressive of the two. So the pro-Israel groups weighed in favor of the less progressive individual once again. Web3 Forward, the super PAC, gave $106,100. That was probably to Emily Beach, is my guess. Okay, David Canepa got $12,500 in outside spending, but that was against him. It wasn't for him. So those are the organizations that were active in outside spending. The With Honor Fund gave $112,982 to somebody. I don't know. I can't say to who here. Okay, but we have two people who were failures in the litmus test. So let's move on. So Robert Mullin says, Kevin Mullin is a hero to the California Clean Money campaign. That's interesting. I don't know why. Robert Copeland says, Steve, I have to say Doris Matsui is my congressperson. And we went over Doris Matsui on Wednesday night. Steve says, AOC wants to impeach Clarence Thomas. So do I, but I don't think an impeachment of Clarence Thomas is going to get very far on grounds that he was keeping very close company with this very rich plutocrat. Robert Copeland says, wow, it's rare a politician gives PAC money back. Yeah, that was interesting. Steve Wolfbrand says, Doc, that's Robert's congressman. Robert says, Steve, I have to say, Doris Matsui is my congressperson. And Steve says, Robert, okay. And that's when Robert said, Kevin Mullin is a hero to the California Clean Money campaign. Steve says, Kshama Sawan seems like the only honest one out there. I think that's going to turn out to be the case. That's going to be amazing. Steve says, smash the like button. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. By the way, also, please visit my patreon.com account. It's up there on the screen. Or visit my Buy Me a Coffee account and buy me a coffee. I would very much appreciate it. So, I'm moving now to one of the least popular congresspeople in existence, a non-progressive Dem known as Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. And here goes here goes the Deb. She's in Florida, CD 25. And she raised $2,081,939, spent $1,915,793, ended with cash on hand of $782,379. She got a lot of financial competition from Carla Spaulding, a Republican, who raised $1,968,521 and spent $1,971,620, ended with cash on hand of $12,920. Excuse me for a second while I let D in.
Hello, how you doing?
This is my friend Dee Pierce, who is the co-host of Around the World with Brandy and Dee, the live stream immediately preceding this one. Thank you for joining me, Dee.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here. We got good old Debbie Wasserman-Schultz up.
Yeah, you're in time for Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. We covered Dean Philips already. He went down to defeat pretty easily. And we covered also Kevin Mullin in California. And it was clear that he was relying a lot on large individual contributions and some PAC money as well. Robert says he's perceived as being very clean in California, and he did do something in the PAC area. He got some PAC money, and he gave it back.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of interesting. It wasn't a whole hell of a lot of money he gave back, but he must have decided somewhere along the line he wasn't going to take any PAC money. And so he gave back the contributions that he gained in that particular. And so he came off at the end as being PAC free, but he did raise an awful lot of money from well off people. So he failed a litmus test on those grounds. There was also a good deal of super PAC money, carry committee money supporting him, something like $598,000, and he did not repudiate that.
Okay.
So he failed on two grounds. And Robert Copeland notes there are probably people at the city level that would pass the litmus test. Yeah, I think we might find that. Anyway, going on with Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. She barely raised more money than her opponent. She finished with a lot more cash on hand. There wasn't much outside spending. There was some, $12,450 in support of Carla Spaulding. There was $8 in outside spending that opposed her. There was $558 in outside spending supporting Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, and $5,000 opposing Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. So outside spending did not go in favor of Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. Let us look at the candidates tab now. In District 25. Debbie Wasserman-Schultz got 55.1% of the vote. So she won, but for a congressional race, it's a relatively close race. Her small individual contributions were small. She raised $174,000 there. It was 8.36% of what she raised. Her large individual contributions were $1.2 million. They were nearly 59% of what she raised. So she was being supported by people, a lot of people, who gave her more than $200 per contribution. She did well in the PAC area, getting $672,050 in PAC contributions, and that was 32.28% of what she raised. Carla Spalding, the Republican, got 44.9% of the vote. She did far better in small individual contributions, less than 200,
Hmm.
than Debbie Wasserman-Schultz did, which is kind of interesting. She raised 1,175,667 in small individual contributions.
Mm-hmm.
That was almost 60% of what she raised. In the area of large individual contributions, she got 661,713. That was 33.61% of what she raised. So she flunks the litmus test on that basis, but have to say, she is one of the closest people to actually not failing the litmus test that we've seen so far. Uh, so her fundraising figures, the type of campaign she ran against Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, must have involved a pretty substantial ground game, which is rare for a Republican.
Oh, yes, it is.
Uh, her PAC contributions were only $231. I don't know about the outside spending. We'll take a look at the outside spending in just a minute. I think it wasn't substantial in this case. Yeah, 12,450 for Carla Spalding and 5,000 in opposition to Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. So Debbie came out on the short end of that particular stick. The New Jersey PAC, Super PAC, 17,450. That was in support of Carla Spalding. Uh, the Florida Freedom PAC, which is a super PAC, not a PAC, gave $540. Probably that was to Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. I don't think she got much in outside spending. Yeah, she got 558 in support of her in outside spending. Not sure what the 5,000 against her came from. Maybe it came from the New Jersey PAC, which is a super PAC. They contributed $17,450 altogether. Yeah, they probably spent the $5,000 against Debbie Wasserman-Schultz and the 12,450 in favor of Carla Spalding. So that's probably what happened there. That's somewhat interesting. Frankly, I expected when we examined Debbie Wasserman-Schultz statistics that we would see a relatively huge amount of money raised by Debbie Wasserman-Schultz due to large individual contributions and or PAC contributions. We did not see that. The money raised for Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, the 2,081,000 or 2,082,000. That's not a lot of money for a congressperson to raise. The average was 3.5 million in 2022. So it was a relatively close race. And I don't think that Debbie distinguished herself in swamping her opponent this time. Maybe that means she's weak, and maybe that means that she can be defeated in the not too distant future. I think she's a totally corrupt individual, and
She is very much so. I agree.
yeah, and I would love to see her defeat. Absolutely love it. Okay, our next, maybe I should say our next victim, but our next candidate to be considered is Washington District 8. That is a Democrat, not a progressive Democrat. I mean, remember, Washington's a very progressive state. And some of their people make motions, like they're really progressive. Like, for example, Pramila Jayapal does that. But Kim Schrier doesn't pretend. She hasn't joined the CPC. She sort of runs as a centrist Democrat. She was the incumbent. She was the winner. She raised $9,435,679. She spent $10,798,000 and came out of this with cash on hand of $350,390. So, in spending more than she raised, she was down by about $1.4 million in this particular race. I mean, she used to have cash on hand of $1.7 million. She spent a lot here. Anyway, Matt Larkin, her Republican opponent, raised $2,678,361, spent $2,674,422, and ended with $3,939. Outside spending, there was a good bit of it in this race, in support of Kim Schrier, $1,366,941, but in opposition to Kim Schrier, $8,173,885. And there was Matt Larkin, $501,486 in outside spending in favor of him, but $7,622,000 in opposition to him. So that was kind of odd.
Mm-hmm.
So if you add the opposing money and the supporting money together for Kim Schrier, you get $8.9 million. And if you do the same thing for Matt Larkin, you get about $8.7 million. So the outside spending was very equal between the two parties. Another Republican, Jesse Jensen, who ran in Washington, they have these jungle primaries also. So the top two in the primaries were Kim Schrier and Matt Larkin. But another guy named Jesse Jensen got $256,429 in support of him in outside spending, $29,735 in opposition to him. And yet another Republican was opposed. His name was Reagan Dunn. He got $87,331 in opposition to his candidacy in outside spending. So outside spending was extremely active in this race. And we'll take a look at this in just a minute. I want to see what the results were. Kim Schrier won with 53.4% of the vote. So it was close. And Matt Larkin got 46.6% of the vote. In the area of small individual contributions, Kim Schrier raised $1,160,373, which was 12.3% of what she raised. Not an insubstantial amount as these things go, in terms of what we've been seeing. Her large individual contributions, though, were 6,541,113, almost 70% of what she raised. Her PAC contributions were $1.2 million. That was 13.18% of what she raised. So she fails the litmus test on grounds of large individual contributions and the PAC contributions, as well. There was also 490,948 that went to Kim Schrier, but is in this category of other. In other words, it wasn't candidate self-financing, it wasn't PAC contributions, it wasn't large individual contributions, it wasn't small individual contributions. I wonder how it ought to be characterized. It was 5.2% of what was raised, so that's kind of interesting. So Matt Larkin raised 166,719 from small individual contributions, but almost $1 million, 999,949, 37.33% of what he raised from large individual contributions from well-off and rich people. He did get 153,650 in PAC contributions. He also did candidate self-financing of $1,164,300. That was 43.47% of what he raised. So obviously he's a rich guy if he could spend as much as that on his own campaign. You could infer that his large individual contributions are from other rich guys. His candidate self-financing was close to half of what he raised. There was also another category for him with 193,743 in it. That was 7.23% of what he raised. So both of these candidates fail the litmus test on grounds of PAC contributions and large individual contributions. I'm going to look at the outside spending here and see what's interesting that we can learn from that. We went over those figures before, so I'm just going to concentrate on where the money came from. There was 405,000 from the Center Forward Committee, which is a Democratic super PAC. That went to Kim Schrier. Climate Power Action Super PAC gave 76,924 to Kim Schrier. The Congressional Leadership Fund, which is a Republican carry committee, gave 6,201,946, or spent, I should say, 6,201,946 in support of Matt Larkin. In support of Matt Larkin. It was a lot of money. 6,201,946. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee countered with 2,130,000 in support of Kim Schrier. Another super PAC known as EDF Action Votes. That's, I think, Environmental Defense Fund Action Votes. They're a super PAC. They gave $715,564 to Kim Schrier, who's evidently popular in the environment area. So those were the big super PAC sources. Oh, wait a minute. The House Majority PAC, that's Nancy Pelosi's PAC. Well, it's actually a carry committee. Nancy Pelosi's carry committee. $3,815,280 in support of Kim Schrier or in opposition to Matt Larkin. That's a big pile of money, $3,815,280. The National Republican Congressional Committee gave $2,446,098 to Matt Larkin. Boy, they were really fighting over this seat, weren't they? The Together for Progress Super PAC gave $403,850 to Kim Schrier. And the Shield PAC, which is actually a super PAC, gave $760,830 to Kim Schrier. So that's where those sources of money came from. There was really a battle royale over the seat with all kinds of outside money coming in. And Kim Schrier, of course, won the race. Let's review the totals of that before we leave her. She won with 53.4% of the vote, and Matt Larkin got 46.6% of the vote. So it was a fairly slim victory, as you know these victories go. It wasn't a nail biter or anything like that, but it was a respectably tight race there. The two parties really threw in money of all kinds to safeguard that seat for Kim Schrier. I wonder who she knows.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably Nancy Pelosi. I think she's probably a Pelosi crony, but maybe not when it comes to the environment. Okay, Kim Schrier, I believe, is a doctor, if I'm not mistaken. And I think she's had that seat in Washington for some time and well ensconced in Congress as a non-progressive Democrat. Okay, one more person to go over. I'm afraid I just decided to include this person. It wasn't a random selection. She is Jennifer Wexton from the Virginia 10th, and that is my congressional district, which is why I selected her. But that's another interesting race. She raised $3,791,923, and I'm here to tell you she never raised that before. She spent $5,677,619 and ended with cash on hand of $255,002. She was running against this Republican guy. He was a veteran. His name was Hung Kao. And he ran a whole bunch of ads. We were constantly seeing Hung Kao ads. And they were pretty impressive ads if you're thinking about, well, what kind of right-wing campaign could be run that might be attractive, to Virginians. He was running that kind of campaign. He raised $3,171,180, spent $3,078,699, emerged $92,481. In outside spending, there was $101,000 in support of Hung Kao and 79,801 in opposition to Jennifer Wexton. So that was like $280,000 in outside spending on Hung Kao's side of the ledger. For Jennifer Wexton, there was 39,000 in support of her and 79,000 in opposition to her. So Hung Kao was doing much better in the area of outside spending. It was about almost 80,000 in favor of Jennifer Wexton in terms of outside spending, but 280,000 in favor of Hung Kao. So he had a big advantage on the outside spending, while Jennifer Wexton had an advantage in the direct fundraising and in the spending. In other words, she probably won this race on the strength of her additional spending. Hung Kao only spent $3,078,699, but Jennifer Wexton spent $5.7 million to hold her seat. So she was determined that she was not going to lose the seat. Let's look at the candidates tab. She won with 53.3% of the vote. So it was another close race. She raised small individual contributions of $479,446. That was 12.64% of what she raised. She thrived on large individual contributions, almost $2.2 million in large individual contributions, about 57% of what she raised. In PAC contributions, she got $888,612. So you can see from those figures she fails the litmus test. Immediately. She didn't do any self-financing. There was $268,808 in other contributions. I don't know how there can be other contributions here. I mean, if it's not outside spending, which it's not, it's inside spending. If it doesn't come from a PAC, if it doesn't come from an individual, and if it doesn't come from the small dollar donation category and from self-financing, I don't know what that other category should be. One day I'd like to understand that. I don't at this point. Hung Kao, 1,251,719 in small dollar donations. Those TV ads of his were effective to get small dollar donations. That was 40% of what he raised. He got a lot of large individual contributions too. They were 58% of what he raised, 1,850,022. He put in $96 in self-financing, got PAC contributions of $141,700. So in spite of his small dollar donation campaign and good success on that, he flunked the litmus test in the area of large individual contributions and the PAC contributions. So he flunked it also. So both of the major candidates flunked the litmus test in that particular race. I'm going to take a closer look at the external outside spending, see what happened there. Since Hung Kao had an advantage there. which you went over before. There was some outside spending in favor of a primary candidate by the name of Janine Lawson, $73,303 in outside spending in favor of her. If you recall, Jennifer Wexton had $39,734 in support of her and $39,496 in opposition to Hung Kao. So altogether, about $79,000 there, whereas Hung Kao had $201,000 in support of him, $202,000, I should say. And in opposition, about $80,000. So he raised $281,000 or had $281,000 net gain in that outside spending area. I'll start looking at where this money came from, the outside spending. The American Majority Action 501c organization gave almost $25,000 to Hung Kao. The Asian Americans for Change Fund, a super PAC, gave Hung Kao about $7,900. Not that much. The Congressional Leadership Fund Carry Committee, that's a Republican organization, gave $57,000 in support of Hung Kao. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, a PAC, gave $95 to Jennifer Wexton. Phew, that's kind of interesting. Empowering Virginia Parents Super PAC gave $64,000 to Hung Kao. Freedom Works for America gave $73,000 to Hung Kao. The Italian American Dem Leadership Council, a Carry Committee, gave $6,339 to Jennifer Wexton. The Jewish Democratic Council of America, a super PAC, gave $807 to Jennifer Wexton. I believe, I haven't looked this up recently, but I believe that Jennifer Wexton is married to a Jewish lawyer and that they are popular within the Jewish community. So that may account for that small contribution from the Jewish Democratic Council of America. But as I roll down here, I expect to see more contributions from such organizations. National Republican Congressional Committee, a PAC, gave $102,975, I should say, spent $102,975 in outside spending on Hung Kao. Planned Parenthood spent in support of Jennifer Wexton about $16, which really surprises me, because if anybody is a Planned Parenthood type, it's Jennifer Wexton. Sierra Club Independent Action gave $10. 10th Congressional District Democratic Party of Virginia gave $4,400 in outside spending to Jennifer Wexton. And United We Can, which is a Democratic super PAC, gave almost $60,000 to Jennifer Wexton. So that's how the super PAC outside spending worked out. So Jennifer Wexton hangs in there and wins, but of course flunks the litmus test, as did Hung Kao. They both bite the dust when it comes to the litmus test. So let's go over some comments, Dee. Okay, unless you have some comments you want to introduce at this time.
Not really. It's the same old, same old.
It's same old, same old. Okay, I know. Okay, I have to go through this. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but when this is over, I will have an empirical basis for my claim that
Yes,
no
I
one
know.
in Congress passes the litmus test. And I think that's a very important conclusion to be able to get.
Right, and Brandon and I were talking, and I said that, even though no one's passed the litmus test, it's good that we're going over all of this, because it really puts into people's minds what's going on. It's just not a matter of saying it. It's showing example after example after example.
Showing example after example after example that all the CPC members, all the non-CPC Dems are taking money from rich people, from PACs, and perhaps from outside spending. They're relying very little on small dollar donations. Uh, you have to think that they're bought by rich people and by PACs, by PAC donors, by well-off
Yes,
donors. So you
and
have to believe that
that's
they
why,
are predominantly corporate Dems.
right, and that's why we're in the situation we are in.
And that's why we're in the situation we're in. And Robert Copeland points out Joe is speaking about the Wicked Witch of Florida. Yes. And Robert says the Wicked Witch doesn't pass the litmus test, which wasn't a surprise, but I was surprised by how little money she raised and how much money Kim Schrier raised. I mean, that was a surprise to me. Indeed, it was a surprise to me DWS was way under the average and was running in a pretty tight race. Strikes me that she's vulnerable. K. Ride says, yes, Robert. Steve Wolfman says, DWS is disgusting. She is. Steve Wolfman says, the amounts of money are astonishing. They are. The amounts of outside spending in some of these races. The outside spending tends to concentrate in just a relatively few races. But where they put in the outside spending in those few races, the amounts of money are astonishing. They really are. Just hard to believe they're throwing in all this money for an isolated congressional race. Robert Cope said, I wonder if Amazon or Boeing spent any money in this race. Uh, I'm sure Amazon and Boeing spent money in this race, but they probably did it through PACs. And of course, in Washington state races, there was a lot of PAC money getting spent and a lot of super PAC money getting spent too, and that's the way they probably did it. And Robert Copeland says, Joe, still everybody fails the litmus test. That's in Congress. I know. When I started out with this, I did not expect that this was the result that we were going to get. I expected there was going to be a lot of this, a lot of failure of the litmus test. But I was more thinking that, well, maybe 80% of them are going to fail the litmus test. But every single one, I think that's illuminating. And before I leave, I just want to remind you, I'm going to present something else. Well, I guess I have to go to it first. I have to get it first. I'll do that. I will bring up something quickly. Here it is. Okay, so I have too much up here, and this is not where I need it to be. So I have to bring it up in my other browser. Hang on a second. I'm going to get rid of this browser. It's taking too much memory anyway. Okay, let me get this into the browser I'm using for this. Okay, now I can bring this up. I wanted to remind you all of the rule, which you should be seeing in your screens right now. The rule says vote against every candidate except those who won't take money from wealthy corporations, individuals, PACs, or party committees, and who repudiate all super PAC support. So this rule is the basis of the litmus test that we've been using. And of course, what we're seeing is that no one passes that particular litmus test, which I think is a reasonable litmus test. If we're looking for unbought people, they have to be they can't be taking money from any of these categories. And yet they are. All the congressmen are.
Right, because we want a congressperson that's going to represent the people.
Right. And none of these are going to represent the people. They're going to represent the party committees, or they're going to represent the PACs, or they're going to represent the rich or the rich corporations. And if we're going to get a good result in Congress that legislates for the people, we just have to get rid of every one of them. That's what it's coming down to. So I'll be back with more next week. I'm sure that you might be able to see me on one or more of the streams that Brandy and Dee may have this weekend.
Yeah, we'll be streaming this weekend.
So I'll probably be attending one or more of those, but I'll be back certainly on Tuesday with our series, the Empowering Democracy series, on the changes that are going on in the international system, or that are likely to occur in the international system. And we've been having some very interesting discussions there, if you've been watching that. And then I'll be back on Wednesday and Friday of next week with more fundraising shows. And on Thursday, I will be back with the show dealing with the impact, okay, on Americans of the end, okay, of neoliberalism, what kinds of impacts that is likely to have. That's shaping up as a very interesting series, okay, as well. So please do go to my Patreon account, okay, or go to my Buy Me a Coffee account. Please do share as much as you can all of these streams. And I'll see you soon. I'll be back with more, and Dee will be back with more also.
Yes, we will. This weekend should be, I shouldn't say exciting. It's just so much activity is going on in
Yes.
foreign policy. So
Yes.
we can't even plan ahead because it's just moment to moment.
It should be very interesting when Macron gets back to France, in view of what's been going on.
Oh, yeah.
People have said France is burning, and uh, that certainly appears to be true. France is burning. Can Macron do anything about it? Or is he going to have to step down, just simply resign? Or is he going to have to back off and call for the repeal of the so-called reform that he put in, which is causing all of this trouble?
Right. He's got to act. He's got to do something.
Yes, I think so. So that's it for us tonight. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for coming.
Thank you for having me, and good night, everyone.
And we'll be seeing more. You'll be seeing more of us soon.
Yeah.
Or you'll be seeing us if you come, which we hope that you will.